Welcome back to the inside of SisterWives. Tonight, we peel back the veil the Browns spent decades stitching together, layer by layer, lie by lie. You've seen the heartbreak, the betrayals, the slow-motion implosion of a family that once claimed to be celestial. But what if I told you the crack in this empire didn't begin with Christine's defiance or Mary's catfishing scandal? What if the true betrayal, the original sin, was sown years before the cameras ever rolled? This isn't just speculation. This is the forbidden theory, whispered in the shadows of fan forums and buried in the memories of those who once sat in the same pews. If true, it doesn't just shift the narrative. It detonates it. The question is simple, terrifying even. Was Dayton, Robyn's firstborn, secretly Kody's child all along? On the surface, the story the Browns sold us is polished, even poetic. Robyn Sullivan, divorced, broken, raising 3 children alone. She's painted as the damsel in distress, rescued in 2009 when Mary conveniently introduces her to the charismatic patriarch of the Brown clan, Kody himself. By 2010, she's not just his 4th wife, she's his new obsession. Her children, Dayton, Aurora, and Brianna, fold seamlessly into the family. Years later, Kody legally adopts them, with Mary sacrificing her own marriage license to make the paperwork work. TLC packaged it all as romance. A man stepping up to be the hero father. A redemption arc fit for prime time. But what if it was all a carefully constructed illusion? The first crack is the timeline. Robyn always talks about her dark years in vague, emotional platitudes. Never dates. Never specifics. Why? Because details unravel everything. Records say her divorce from David Jessup was finalized in 2007. Dayton was born in January of 2000. At first glance, that looks airtight. Case closed, right? Wrong. That's what they want you to believe. Insiders claim the marriage had collapsed long before, and the legal divorce was nothing more than paperwork trailing behind a dead relationship. Now think about the critical window. 1998, 1999. The exact time Dayton would have been conceived. Where was Kody? Not chained to his wives? Not bound to Flagstaff or Lehi. He was a traveling salesman, moving across Utah, Arizona, Nevada, free, untethered. Janelle herself has admitted Kody was often gone for long stretches, leaving the wives to manage the chaos at home. Where was Robyn? Embedded in the very same apostolic United Brethren circles Kody called home. A small, insular world where names and faces overlapped constantly. To claim their paths never crossed until 2009 is laughable. It defies logic. In a community that tight-knit, everyone knew everyone, and the whispers from those pews still linger. People who were there, on the fringes, in the shadows, have said Kody and Robyn were a known thing long before TLC cameras arrived. Kody. Charismatic, ambitious, always with an eye for younger women. Robyn. Hungry for status, for power, for a name that meant something in a world where women were often invisible. Does that sound like a divorced, desperate woman waiting for salvation? Or a strategist aligning herself with the most powerful man she could find? Now let's do the math. Dayton was born in January 2000. That means conception would have been spring of 1999. By then, Robyn's marriage was already unraveling. What if, in that turbulence, Kody appeared? The golden-haired salesman blowing through town. A moment, a secret. A mistake, or maybe a calculated step. One night would have been enough. Enough to create a child. Enough to set off a scandal so catastrophic it would have shattered both their lives. And in their world, an affair? A pregnancy out of wedlock? Excommunication, ruin, exile. There was only one option: cover it up. Pass the child off as David Jessup's. Let the shell of a marriage limp along for appearances. And that's exactly what happened. But the truth has a way of bleeding through. You can see it in Kody's eyes the very first time Dayton appears on screen. Go back, watch those episodes again, but not as entertainment. Watch them like evidence. Kody doesn't meet Dayton like a stepfather meeting his girlfriend's son. He meets him like a man claiming what was his all along. There's an urgency, almost frantic, in the way he gravitates toward Dayton. It isn't mentorship. It isn't compassion. It's possession. Watch how he insists again and again, "I just get him." We have a special bond. He frames it as mystical, supernatural, unexplainable. But is it, or is it simply biology? A father recognizing himself and his son. A man seeing his own reflection in the quirks, the wiring, even the struggles of a boy who, officially, wasn't his. That bond Kody flaunts so proudly, it isn't the mark of a noble stepfather. It may be the primal cellular recognition of blood, of lineage, of a truth buried for 2 decades. And if that truth comes out, everything we thought we knew about the Browns collapses. Tonight, we continue pulling the thread that unravels the Browns' biggest secret. And this time, the evidence gets darker, more visceral, and impossible to ignore. Consider the ATV accident. Dayton suffers a devastating eye injury. A horrific moment, yes, but Kody's reaction? It wasn't the measured concern of a stepfather. It was panic. Raw, unfiltered, primal panic. The kind that comes not from obligation, but from blood. He spiraled. The entire family's world stopped cold. Life revolved around Dayton's recovery, and Kody was at the very center of it. Of course, any adult would care. But Kody didn't just care, he took over. He became the primary figure in Dayton's care, shutting everyone else out. It wasn't compassion. It was ownership. It was guilt. It was the terror of a father who almost lost his firstborn son. The son he could never admit was his. And then, there's Robyn. Her entire persona on SisterWives is one long performance. Tearful, trembling, perpetually misunderstood. She is always the victim, always the wounded dove. But look closer. If our forbidden theory is true, then every single tear, every sobbed confessional, every shaking voice is not just emotion, it's strategy. Her crying is a shield, a weapon. The perfect way to smother suspicion before it breathes. Anytime the past creeps too close, anytime someone dares to press for details, she breaks down. Instantly, she becomes untouchable. To press further would make the questioner look cruel. And so her secret stays safe. She frames her first marriage as dark, abusive, but never offers specifics. Why? Because specifics can be disproved. Vagueness, on the other hand, is impenetrable. And by painting David Jessup as a monster, she poisoned the well forever. If he ever came forward to claim Dayton wasn't his, who would believe him? He'd be dismissed as a bitter ex-husband lashing out. Robyn secured her defense long before the accusation could even surface. But the most damning act of all? The adoption. On television, it was sold as a fairy tale ending. Kody, the noble stepfather, legally claiming children who were not his own. Mary sacrificing her marriage license to make it possible. A grand, selfless gesture for love. But through the lens of this theory, it's chilling. The adoption wasn't about giving 3 kids a last name. It was about erasing David Jessup from the story forever. It was Kody's desperate legal maneuver to claim his secret son without question, to bury the past and seal the truth beneath court documents and notarized signatures. Think about the cost. Mary, Kody's first and only legal wife, had to divorce him. After decades of loyalty, she was stripped of her status, her security, her dignity. For what? To give Robyn the crown? Or, more accurately, to give Kody the one thing he could never admit he already had, his biological son. And once Mary played her role, she was discarded, coldly, brutally. She wasn't useful anymore. Kody had what he wanted, and her sacrifice faded into dust. This is why the Browns family dynamic makes no sense unless the secret is real. Why did Kody burn his entire family to the ground for Robyn? Why did her children always come first while the OG 13 were pushed aside? Why were funds funneled into Robyn's mansion while Janelle's kids lived in an RV and Christine begged for scraps of attention? Because Robyn wasn't just the 4th wife. She was the keeper of the original sin, the woman who carried his firstborn son. To Kody, the rest of his children were distractions. But Dayton was the truth he spent 2 decades protecting. The favoritism wasn't favoritism, it was desperation. Every dollar, every ounce of attention, every ounce of protection was about guarding the evidence of his greatest betrayal. And the other children? They felt it. They may not have understood it, but they knew. Children always know. They sensed the injustice, the imbalance. They saw a father who poured his soul into one set of children while neglecting the rest. Their resentment wasn't jealousy, it was survival. It was the pain of being forced to live inside a lie. And then the slips. The Freudian slips they couldn't hide. Kody, speaking in those early seasons, saying of Robyn's children, "It was like they were mine from the very beginning." Viewers swooned. But what if he wasn't being poetic? What if he was telling the literal truth hidden in plain sight? And Robyn herself, confessing that she had to guard her virtue even in her first marriage. The audience read it as purity. But what if it was code? What if it was justification? Her way of saying, "I broke my vows, but I was right to do it." And then, there are the digital breadcrumbs. Rumors of blog posts, scrubbed from the internet when TLC realized what they implied. Posts from as early as 2008 naming Robyn Sullivan as a friend of the Brown family. A friend? A full year before Mary supposedly introduced her? Coincidence? Or evidence? And whispers from the church. Former members claiming Kody's vehicle was spotted in St. George, Robyn's hometown, years before the official courtship. Was he on sales trips? Or secret visits to the woman carrying his child? Piece by piece, the mosaic sharpens into focus. The small insular community, Kody's constant travel, Robyn's unhappy marriage, a conception window that matches perfectly, a divorce filed years later muddying the truth, Kody's obsessive bond with Dayton, Robyn's weaponized victimhood, the adoption, the favoritism, the discarded wives. Put it all together and the official story becomes the least believable explanation. The forbidden theory, as shocking as it is the only theory that explains the chaos. The Brown story is not one of plural marriage. It is the story of a man who fathered a child in secret and then built an entire empire, an entire television show, just to cover it up. Kody Brown didn't bring Robyn into the family for love. He brought her in to bring his son home. And the rest of the family? Mary, Janelle, Christine, their children? They weren't partners. They were camouflage, collateral. Disposables in the shadow of Kody's greatest transgression. In the shadow of Kody's greatest transgression. Tonight, we step even deeper into the forbidden theory. What if everything we thought we knew, the struggles, the jealousy, the so-called collapse of plural marriage, was never about polygamy at all? What if the entire Brown empire was nothing more than a stage play, a carefully scripted performance designed to protect one devastating secret? Because in truth, the wives weren't partners. They were props. Their children? Supporting cast members in the Kody and Robyn show. This doesn't just reframe the SisterWives story as a failed experiment in plural love. It redefines it as a conspiracy, one that spanned decades, shattered lives, and twisted faith into a weapon. Kody didn't fail at plural marriage. No, plural marriage was the vehicle, the perfect camouflage, for the deception he was living. He cloaked himself in scripture, in principles of celestial law, in loyalty vows, all while using his wife's trust and his children's innocence as scaffolding for his hidden truth. A secret love with Robyn, and the son he may have fathered in the shadows. Let's consider the psychological toll of such a lie. For Kody, it explains everything. His inflated ego, his paranoia, his endless sermons about loyalty. Living a lie this enormous demands one thing. You must become the hero of your own story. You must believe your own propaganda. And Kody did. To justify himself, he elevated Robyn to soulmate status, the divine partner, the chosen one, while slowly reducing Christine, Janelle, and Mary to little more than burdens. His fury when they left him wasn't the fury of a husband abandoned. It was the rage of a man watching the cover story he built brick by brick crumble in public. For Robyn, it explains her tears, her anxieties, her endless need for control. She isn't simply a wife lost in jealousy. She's a co-conspirator. She knows the stakes. Every time she demands Kody's undivided attention, it isn't just neediness. It's desperation. A plea. Stay with me, stay loyal to me, because if you fall, I fall too. Every fight she starts, every tear she sheds, it's a test of their pact. A reminder that she and Kody are bound together by a secret they can never let slip. And then there's Dayton, the innocent, the axis around which this entire theory turns. Raised under a shadow he may not even know exists. For him, identity itself is fragile. The man he called stepfather may be his true father. The man whose last name he bore, David Jessup, was either the victim of a cruel betrayal, or worse, a willing participant in hiding the truth. If Dayton is the secret, then he is also the tragedy, the center of gravity around which all the chaos of the Brown family swirled. Think about it. The implosion of the SisterWives family isn't just the collapse of plural marriage. It is the karmic bill finally coming due. A deception this large, this profound, could only ever end one way: ruin. And though the truth may never be spoken on a TLC couch or whispered in a tell-all special, its fingerprints are everywhere, in every tear, in every fight, in every broken child and shattered wife we've watched on screen. But to see the full picture, we must look not only at Kody and Robyn. We must look at the silence of the one man who could have blown the story apart from the beginning: David Jessup. Robyn's first husband. The man whose name appears on Dayton's birth certificate. The man who has been painted by Robyn, again and again, as controlling, abusive, unworthy of love. National television dragged his name through the dirt. Tabloids repeated the story. And yet, silence. For over a decade, he has said nothing. No interviews, no memoirs, no angry Facebook posts. Not a single public defense of his character. Why? Is it because he is exactly the monster Robyn portrayed? Hiding in guilt and shame? Or is there another explanation? One far more chilling? Perhaps David was paid. A financial settlement hidden in divorce papers or adoption documents. Kody and Robyn, with a lucrative TLC deal on the horizon, had both motive and money to secure his silence. Perhaps there was even a non-disclosure agreement, ironclad, ensuring the truth would never escape his lips. Or perhaps David was threatened. The Apostolic United Brethren is a powerful insular world. Religious communities can ostracize, exile, erase. Maybe David was told, stay quiet, or you lose everything. Your faith, your family, even your connection to your daughters, Aurora and Brianna. Silence may have been his only way of keeping the faintest thread to his children. And then, the darkest possibility of all, David knew from the beginning. He knew Dayton was not his child. Perhaps he agreed to play the role, a placeholder father, to protect himself and Robyn from public disgrace. In this version, the adoption wasn't the erasure of a negligent father. It was simply the legal confirmation of a truth hidden in whispers since the late 90s. David Jessup, then, wasn't a villain. He was the first casualty of the Kody and Robyn conspiracy. His name tarnished, his voice stolen, sacrificed so their secret could survive. Now ask yourself, doesn't this explain Kody's obsession with Dayton? The disproportionate attention, the intense emotional energy, the way his bond with Dayton only grew while his relationships with his other sons, Logan, Hunter, Garrison, decayed? This isn't about favoritism. It's about blood, about lineage, about a truth so explosive, Kody was willing to sacrifice 3 wives, 13 children, and an entire faith to protect it. And in the end, maybe that's what SisterWives has always been. Not a story about plural marriage, but a story about one secret, one lie, and one son, Dayton. And now we come to perhaps the most heartbreaking evidence of all, Gabriel. His story isn't just another example of favoritism. It is the raw, undeniable proof that something far darker has always been at play. Logan, Kody's firstborn with Janelle, grew up carrying the weight of responsibility far beyond his years. He was the parentified child, the protector, the steady presence. Kody respected him, yes, but did you ever see obsession? Did you ever hear Kody's voice tremble with pride when he said Logan's name? No, that kind of connection never existed. Hunter, Garrison, Gabriel, these boys have spoken out, sometimes directly, sometimes through their mothers, about the hollow space where their father's love should have been. But it was Gabriel who bore the cruelest wound. On his own birthday, waiting for his father to call, he picked up the phone only to hear Kody talking about himself. His COVID symptoms, his discomfort, his needs. Not a word about his son, not a single happy birthday. The call ended with Gabriel sobbing, mourning not just a forgotten birthday, but the death of the father he thought he once had. Now hold that moment up to the mirror of Kody's treatment of Dayton. Every detail of Dayton's life, the college he chose, the home he lived in, his emotional well-being was treated as sacred. The entire family structure bent to his needs. Kody's voice when speaking of Dayton was different, filled with awe, with pride, with wonder. But when he spoke of Garrison or Gabriel, his voice curdled into contempt. He called them selfish, jerks, disappointments. He demanded apologies, not as a father seeking peace, but as a tyrant demanding submission. Why? Why discard your own son so easily while clinging so desperately to a boy who was supposedly adopted? The answer is as chilling as it is simple, because the labels are wrong. Dayton isn't the adopted child. He is Kody's true firstborn, the secret heir of the woman he calls his soulmate. In Kody's mind, the sons of Janelle and Christine are not just rebellious children. They are symbols. Living reminders of wives he never truly loved, of obligations he resented, of years spent waiting in the shadows before he could claim his real family. His neglect isn't neglect at all, it's punishment. They were born of the wrong women. They stood in Dayton's way. But this story isn't only written in tears, it's carved into dollars and cents. Follow the money and the truth screams louder than words. It began subtly. Nicer homes for Robyn, better clothes for her children. But it crescendoed in the catastrophic move to Flagstaff. The Browns left behind their Las Vegas cul-de-sac, 4 homes of equity, community, stability, for raw land and scattered rentals. Why? Because Robyn wanted it. Because Dayton had a college there. Once again, Dayton's path became the compass that steered the entire family into chaos. The results were brutal. Christine cramped into a rental. Janelle forced into a fifth-wheel trailer on the barren land because she had no options left. Mary rattling alone in an overpriced rental, and Kody settled into a $1 million home with Robyn, a 5-bedroom fortress surrounded by trees, financed by the collective sacrifices of every other wife and child. This wasn't incompetence. It was strategy. In Kody's mind, he wasn't stealing from the family pot. He was investing. Building not for his plural family, but for his true dynasty, Robyn and her children. Dayton, the secret heir? And if you think this theory sounds far-fetched, look no further than the name of their family business. Dabsark Entertainment, the legal entity holding the income of the entire Brown clan. What does Dabsark stand for? Dayton, Aurora, Brianna, Solomon, Ariella, Robyn, Kody. That's it. No Christine. No Janelle. No Mary. None of their 13 children. The business name itself is a confession in plain sight. A neon sign declaring who Kody really saw as his family. Everyone else? Expendable. And then, there is Mary, the tragic architect of her own downfall. The official story says she brought Robyn in, that she wanted a friend, a sister, a partner, that she was naive, generous, even noble. But the reality? She was manipulated, groomed. Kody and Robyn, already entangled long before, needed a legitimate way to bring their secret love into the light. And what better alibi than an introduction from the first wife? Kody likely whispered to Mary for months, complaining of loneliness, painting himself as misunderstood, planting the idea of a new wife, a soulmate. And then the chance meeting with Robyn, perfectly staged, perfectly timed. The Trojan horse rolled through the gates, and Mary herself opened the door. And what was her reward? Abandonment. After the legal divorce that allowed Kody to marry Robyn and adopt her children, Mary's role was finished. She had legitimized the entry of Kody's soulmate, signed away her legal status, sacrificed her crown as first wife. And for what? Kody discarded her, publicly, cruelly, declaring her no longer a wife in any meaningful sense. Her infamous catfishing scandal was not the mistake of a foolish woman. It was the scream of someone erased, used, betrayed. She gave everything and received nothing. She had been replaced, and deep down she knew it. And so we arrive at the present day, the implosion we've all witnessed. Christine leaving, citing favoritism. Janelle finally breaking when Kody demanded she choose between him and her sons. The Brown Empire didn't collapse. It detonated. And the blast radius? Every tear-streaked face, every fractured bond, every bitter fight. All of it leads back to the same source. Back to the same queen. Back to Robyn. The same queen. Back to Robyn. Not just because of marital strife, but because of Kody's obsessive need to shield Robyn from the slightest criticism. Insiders have claimed he would halt production, mid-scene, just to berate the crew, furious if even a single question painted Robyn in a negative light. Imagine it. A set that should have captured reality instead transformed into a hostage situation, with everyone walking on eggshells around the self-crowned king and queen. This is not the behavior of a man in a complicated plural marriage. This is the behavior of a man guarding a secret. A man who knows that one wrong word, one unfiltered question, could collapse the entire house of cards. And the whispers didn't stop at TLC's gates. Former AUB members tell of an open secret, one the community never dared to say aloud. Kody and Robyn, already entangled in the late 90s, a rumor that slithered through their small world. But the community prized silence over scandal. When TLC came knocking, the unspoken pact was clear: bury the past. Protect the image. Present the glossy, sanitized version of the Brown family. And now look at Kody. The man who once strutted across season 1 with a swagger and a grin is gone. In his place, a bitter patriarch with thinning hair, a face carved with rage, his paranoia leaking through every interview, every tell-all. Christine's exit wasn't just a divorce. Janelle's rebellion wasn't just a falling out. These were catastrophic breaches in his security system. They walked away with their stories, their truths, and the freedom to finally speak. His rage? It is the panic of a man losing control of the narrative he spent decades manufacturing. Strip away the camouflage and what do you see? Not a proud polygamous leader, A man who betrayed his wives, his faith, and his children, all to protect a secret family. Piece by piece, the forbidden theory falls into place. A clandestine affair in the late 90s. A child conceived in silence. A placeholder husband erased. A first wife manipulated into opening the gates. Finances siphoned to prioritize the real family. A legal divorce, an adoption, a business named only after Robyn and her children. 13 other children emotionally damaged, 2 wives gone, and a family empire reduced to rubble. Every bizarre decision, every cruel word, every act of favoritism, suddenly it all makes sense when viewed through this lens. The official story TLC sold us, a tale of soulmates and blending families, was nothing but a fairy tale. The reality? A Shakespearean tragedy of betrayal that metastasized like a cancer until it consumed the Browns from the inside out. And what of Robyn's other children, Aurora and Brianna? To the public, they were rescued by Kody, adopted into a loving new family. But within this theory, they are living exhibits in their mother's grand performance. Their father, David Jessup, wasn't simply left behind, he was erased. Painted as the villain so Kody could play the hero. Their loyalty isn't proof of love. It is proof of survival. Their place in the family was conditional, tethered to their mother's success in holding her throne. And Aurora, her panic attacks shown on national TV, were they just personal struggles? Or were they the body scream of a truth too dangerous to say aloud? Children absorb the secrets of their parents. Living in a house built on deception, under the shadow of a mother constantly on guard, creates an endless hum of fear. Perhaps Aurora's panic was not weakness, it was prophecy. Then there are Solomon and Ariella, the only children born after the dust settled, who have never known life outside the Kody-Robyn monarchy. To them, Janelle, Mary, Christine aren't mothers. They are difficult women who hurt their father. 18 other siblings? Distant relatives. Solomon and Ariella are the inheritors of a rewritten history, a history curated by the very 2 people with the most to hide. And at the center of it all stands the soulmate narrative. The excuse for every cruel slight, every financial disparity, every fractured bond. They have to be soulmates, because if they aren't, what are they? Not lovers destined by heaven, not partners chosen by fate, but a man and a woman who betrayed their spouses, conceived a child, and demolished an entire family to sanctify their sin. The soulmate story is holy water poured over a graveyard, a fairy tale alibi, and so Kody twists faith into a weapon. Every whim rebranded as revelation. Every selfish move disguised as God's command. He didn't follow the principles of his religion. He exploited them. No betrayal cuts deeper than what he did to Christine. Once the faithful believer, the royalty of their faith, she swallowed pain for decades, raising children, sacrificing herself, clinging to principle. And how was she repaid? With scorn, with cold refusals, with a husband who told her to her face he wasn't attracted to her. Not just neglect, but punishment. For not being Robyn. Her escape wasn't just a divorce. It was a revolution. And in finding love outside, Christine delivered the most damning verdict of all. She proved their world had been a lie. The cost? 13 children left to navigate abandonment. Sons like Garrison and Gabriel, treated as traitors for daring to question. Their tears became the truest testimony of this entire saga. Kody's allegiance to Robyn came before his covenant to them, and in the end, they paid the highest price. So where does that leave us? With evidence piled so high it eclipses the official story. With motives, means, patterns, and scars so glaring, they no longer need DNA to prove their case. The truth is written in the wreckage. And the final image? Kody and Robyn alone in their mansion, surrounded not by family, but by ghosts. They won the war, yes, but what did they win? Each other. And their secrets. Nothing more. So I ask you, SisterWives crew, what's your verdict? Was Robyn just a woman who found love against the odds? Or was she the most calculated manipulator in reality TV history? Drop your judgment in the comments below. And if this series has uncovered the truth you always suspected, show your support. Like, subscribe, share. Because here, we peel back the layers TLC never wanted you to see. And remember, the cameras only show you the story they want you to believe. We are here to reveal the one they don't. We are here to reveal the one they don't.